Intertalk Radio, you're in to all things music.
May the best brand win with Scott Robertson's Music Biz Marketing Strategies. Now, here's your host, Scott Robertson.
Hey, happy Friday, everybody. You are tuned to May the Best Brand Win on Intertalk Radio, the undisputed leader in music biz talk. I am Scott, your host, and a man who is more than ready to fall all the way back, to back it all the way up this weekend as daylight savings time bids us adieu. And with me in the booth is Paul, who lives his entire life on daylight savings time. He refuses to change, and that's why he's always either an hour early or an hour late for everything.
And a buck short too. That's true. And I'm always the last to know about daylight savings. This is the first I've heard of it from you just now.
There you go. So, make sure that you, fall back. Thank you. So you make sure that you set your clock back. You get that extra hour of sleep.
Well, the good thing now is everything is on cell phones. That's pretty much everyone's clocks, and they reset automatically. So I don't have to think about it anymore. I'm surprised, like, I feel like I got more sleep than I did, or the opposite.
Yet one more benefit of living in a technological world. You don't have to set clocks anymore.
Yeah.
It's very exciting. Yeah, when they say set your clocks, there's probably like your microwave clock. I mean, they haven't made those to where they set by themselves yet. You got to set your microwave clock.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Nobody looks at those anyway.
Nah, you don't, but otherwise it's going to be. Or your car clock, because you always have to set the clock in your car. That is not an auto set type of operation.
Yeah. Maybe with the newer cars, mine is still old and dumpy. I still gotta stick like a pen in a rubber button kind of thing.
Yes, exactly. Well, you start working on that now. By Saturday night, by the time you go to bed, you need to set your clocks.
Yeah, I'll have to go through that cycle. From you have to go 12 times over, or 11 times, or 13, whatever, just to because you can't go backwards in a car clock.
Exactly.
I wish they would abolish the whole thing.
They should. They tried in California, but it got voted down.
Yeah.
Do you know they tried to say, hey, let's not do this anymore? Mm-hmm. And then, I don't know, somebody stepped up and said, let's keep doing it. And I didn't follow the whole thing. But anyway, there was a measure in the California legislature this year to abolish daylight savings time, and it failed.
Yeah, I heard about that. I hope it comes back around and passes. Hey, it took us a while to get the weed through. Maybe it's someone stepped up. It's like, all right, you can have your weed, but let's not go crazy here.
Exactly. Well, they'll charge you 12 cents more a gallon for gas every day of the week, but you try to do something useful for society, and it's a fight.
Yeah.
Get ready. Well, kids, you're on the big show. So if you want to reach me, Scott, you can always reach me at scott@robertsoncom2ms.com. You can find me at my Robertson.com website, which is, not surprisingly, www.robertsoncom2ms.com. And also on social media. And just to spoil it, here, it's going to be at RobertsonCom on Twitter. And, of course, Facebook.com/ wait for it, RobertsonCom with 2 M's. There you go. That's all the ways you can connect with me. I do have people who listen to the show and then say, hey, I want to subscribe to your e-newsletter, and I want to see, your crazy venting and those kind of things, and get some useful tips. I do, get subscribers to my newsletter, based on listeners of the show. So thanks you guys for doing that. And, it's always a pleasant surprise to see that people are out there, paying attention to the message. And, I always appreciate that. So anywho, and I always appreciate hearing from people. If you shoot me an email, that would be cool, and we could have a conversation. Be sure you let me know what episode you're talking about, because we've done 70 some odd of these. Actually, today's episode is number 72 of the big show. And I call this episode Firing the Client. The professional service to business is really all about relationships. And relationships actually are two-way streets, and sometimes clients, whether they be internal clients you serve inside of an organization as a marketing person, or external folks that actually pay you to work for them, sometimes they need to be kind of respectfully and politely shown the business end of the door, and we're going to talk about that today because it happened to me this week and I wanted to kind of share that experience, and I wanted to help anybody out there that is going through that themselves and just kind of explain, just all things about firing the client. So, we're sure this is going to be another award-winning episode. We've won so many awards this year; it's been exciting. This one, we think we're going to win the Motor Trend Car of the Year award. We're not sure, we're not sure if that's even possible, but we've submitted it, and we think this episode might be good enough to win Motor Trend Car of the Year. We're going to talk about client service provider relationships, and we're going to also talk about who's winning and losing. And I'm going to give you a few great tips on how to be a great client. So we're an action-packed episode coming up. So I guess I can start by telling this story. So this week I had to fire a client. I run my company, Robertson Com. It's a public relations and strategic marketing and branding agency that I've run for, about 6 years now. And this week I had to fire a client. And this is, it's hard. It's hard to have to do. It's hard to fire people. It's hard to fire clients. If you've ever fired anyone or anything, there's nothing easy about it. It's always stressful. It always takes a toll. It always just dominates your thought process about, how to do it. One of the things that I really hated in the agency life was the fact that I did have to lay people off. I did have to fire people. It is not easy to do. And firing a client, why people think it might be the most, gleeful thing in the world, just kind of tell them, where to go and that kind of thing. It's not, because if you're a business owner, you care about the relationship and you want to, at least I want to do things, in a proper manner. So I had this client that shall remain nameless that I've been working with for a few months, and they wanted some public relations services. They wanted to get a feature story in a particular high-level publication. So we went through the things that we do in the PR side of things. What's your story? Let's figure it out. Let's get the press materials created. Let's pitch this story. We talked at length about, it's a very focused assignment. Instead of like, hey, I want you to tell the world about me. It's like, I want a feature in this one publication. That's what I want. Difficult assignment, really difficult assignment, because there's so many things in public relations that aren't in our control, and putting all your eggs in one basket is really tricky. But I took the assignment and I felt good about the story. We worked on it. I set up I was able to get the placement for the client. I was able to get the interview, get them interested. They passed me around to a couple of different editors, as sometimes happen. And then suddenly the client, didn't want to do it. Didn't want to do it, was unresponsive, wouldn't schedule the interview, wouldn't do anything. So that makes me, ye old public relations practitioner, look like an idiot. It makes me look really bad. It burns the one bridge that is the most important bridge in my business, which is editorial relationships. It also goes to your reputation as a PR practitioner, and I don't like that neither. So I don't like that when things affect my reputation that idiots do to me. So I and then they wouldn't take my counsel, basically, which is like hiring a doctor, and the doctor says, you're really sick. And they're like, no, I think I'll just wait it out. I think I'll just slap a Band-Aid on it or whatever. And it's like, and the doctor's like, okay, die then, good luck. It's like, you don't hire experts and then don't listen to them. That's another, as a point of reference and a point of a lesson. So anyway, just to continue with the story. So the reporters calling saying, look, I'm on deadline. I promised this story. I need this story. Where's your client? Where's this interview? So now everybody's getting stressed out, right? Client won't do the interview. Reporter's mad at me, thinking that I'm off on a beach somewhere and they're not taking care of business. And the whole thing was just really, really bad. And at the end, I finally just had to call the reporter and say, look, my client's not going to do this. They're doing other things. They're unresponsive. They're not listening to my counsel. That thing. So the reporter is pissed and writes some expletives back to me along the lines of, please don't ever contact me again. You beep. Not a nice email. So then I'm talking to the client, and they say, yeah, so hey, so what are you going to do for me now? And I said, here's what I'm going to do for you now. I'm going to let you go because you are awful, and you wasted this journalist's time, and you wasted my time, and you paid me, and congratulations, for your check clearing. But that's not all I look for in a client. I look for people that are engaged in the process and not going to be a problem. So anyway, long story short, or long story long, I had to fire the client, and I had to figure out the best way to do it. But that's, that's where I felt like, hey, we can't keep doing this. It obviously is a very negative situation. And then I let the reporter know. I said, by the way, just because of the way that the client handled this, I terminated them this week. I had to, and I did, and that's sort of and that's sort of what happened. And the reporter came back to me and said, I will work with you on whatever it is that you're working on next. You let me know. You let me know, and we will do a story together and that kind of thing. The reporter completely appreciated the fact that I cared about their schedule. I cared about the way that they were, being treated and everything. And the fact that I took that action. And, it definitely cost my company some money, but, there are more important things than money in this world. And integrity is on that list, ladies and gentlemen. When you're dealing with me, I'm going to be doing the right thing, regardless of whose business card is associated with what opinions and that sort of thing. I think it's one of the greatest strengths that I bring to an organization is I don't care who you are. I don't care how much money you have. I don't care any of that stuff. We're going to talk about the truth, and if it's politically upsetting to you, then that's just too damn bad. Honest to God. I'm either blessed or cursed with the ability not to care. And, we can debate whether that's a blessing or a curse, but it's a hard thing to do, to fire a client. I've had to do it before. It's never, like I said, it's never easy. In the agency world, I had one client that was sexually harassing a member of my staff that was working there on site. Came in there. She came to me and said, look, this client over here is, he keeps asking me out. He keeps, he's really crossing the line. There's some inappropriate touching going on. And I said, well, we should fire this client, and, what's interesting about that is, what the response was back from me from New York of this agency, that I used to work for when I told them I should fire the client. And instead of saying, yeah, that's the right thing to do. And yeah, they said, well, how much, what percentage of your agency's income does this client represent? And I said, perhaps you didn't hear me. The client is sexually harassing a member of our staff. And to me, that's the end of the conversation. That the conversation ended right after I stopped talking there. Okay. And to too many people in this world, I think they, other things matter to them. It turns out this client was I'll tell you that story. So just, this client represented 80% of the office's revenue. And I fired him. And I fired him with gusto. When I say I fired him, I let them know. I let this guy know. I let a supervisor know. And I let him know. And I said, and by the way, it's not all right to sexually harass women. I said, you're a creep. And, don't ever touch one of my staff like that again, or I'm going to kick your ass personally. That is what I said to him, actually. And, it felt good. That's the right thing to do. That's the right thing to do. If somebody's acting like a jerk or a creep, they need to have their ass kicked. Sometimes in the world, asses need to be kicked. That's what I'm saying. And, that's what we're looking at here. In this situation, much less situation in my personal, office situation, but that one, I had all kinds of people, all kinds of partners at that firm, arguing to me that we should try to keep this client, happy in any way possible. And is it possible that our staff person is making something up or blah 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 blah? I mean, you see it. All over. We're going to talk about Hollywood a little bit later in this. It's a disease, people. That's a disease. You need to have a no tolerance policy for it, just because simply it's the right thing to do. And it doesn't matter how much money somebody has or how much money they may mean to your office. When they're doing the wrong thing, they need to be shown the door and possibly a foot, in a boot. That's how I look at it, at least. So I wanted to talk about kind of what's the right way to fire the client. The right way is you work, sometimes these things can get really personal, but they're not supposed to be. Basically, your company works for their company, and both companies need to kind of come out of like a divorce, right? Both parties need to kind of come out of this, hopefully with as little harm as possible. That's the way I look at it, at least. Even somebody that's done something wrong, it's not punitive damages here. We're trying to make sure that people are harmed as little as possible in the process. You want to do that with a proper transition. You want to do that as much as as possible, and kind of offer to be a resource. I think that's the right way to do it. Think about it in terms of when you have to let somebody go at a company. When you let somebody go at a company, the company that's letting them go wants to be a bit of a resource to them, because that's the way that you try to preserve the relationship as much as possible, that kind of thing. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is just how do you know when the time is right to do it? As I debated this too, I said, should I fire this client because of this? Because maybe, maybe they'll be better the next time. Maybe I'm overreacting. You go through all these kind of things in your mind. I think this is a bit of a gut feel, a bit of a gut feel. I felt like it was the right time to fire this particular client because they were damaging something that's really important to my business, which is editorial relationships. And they just didn't get it. Some clients just don't get it, man. And it's like, I don't have time to teach you business and public relations and all these things. At some point, they have to get it and understand it and trust the expert that they've hired to kind of do the job. Otherwise, it's just not going to work. And you're going to have one of these kind of you're set up to fail kind of situations. If you find yourself in this kind of situation, one thing I will say is, it's never easy. It's never going to be an easy thing. The right time to do it is sort of when you feel like that then it's not going to, it can't be fixed any other way. And, I feel better that I did it. I think it was a strong move from my company. And I think, sometimes in business, it's not always rainbows and unicorns, So you are tuned to May the Best Brand Win on Intertalk Radio, the undisputed leader in music biz talk. Come on back. We're going to talk about who's winning and losing, especially Hollywood, this week. We'll see you.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
This is Jackie Bertoni from Jackie's Groove. Come join me weekly on my journey through the music business as I take you behind the velvet rope, interviewing industry notables such as Al Di Meola, Michael McDonald, and Al Jarreau, to name but a few. Listen to their stories on being in the studios recording #1 hits and onto the stages throughout the globe. Allow me to be your music historian. You can hear me live every Monday at 2 p.m. and every Wednesday at 12 noon Pacific Standard Time or 24/7 on jackiesgroove.com. Ready to get your groove on?
Hi, I'm Tim Dolbear, the host of Sound Experience on Intertalk Radio. Each week, I talk with top professional audio engineers, producers, musicians, and the manufacturers that make the tools that we use in the studio each and every day. From capturing the perfect take to mastering your final release, and the tools and how the pros use them, we are going to dive deep into their process and learn from their experience. I look forward to you joining us each week on Sound Experience with me, your host, Tim Dolbear.
Make this your vinyl night. I'm John J.R. Robinson, and every week, music creation comes alive through stories, experiences, and sounds when vinyl records filled our hearts and minds. My friends and I share our tips and techniques used in creation of iconic tracks for recording artists such as Michael Jackson, Eric Clapton, Quincy Jones, and Steve Winwood, to name a few. Vinyl has emerged hot, and the soul of vinyl defines art and passion which burns deepest at night. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on EnterTalkRadio.com.
May the best brand win with Scott Robertson's Music Biz Marketing Strategies. Now, here's your host, Scott Robertson.
Hey, happy Friday, everybody. You are tuned to May the Best Brand Win on Intertalk Radio, the undisputed leader in music biz talk. I'm Scott, your host. Man, we're talking about firing the client today. We got Paul in the studio. Paul, you ever had to fire anybody? A client, perhaps?
No, not yet, not really.
All right, it comes up.
Yeah, I'm sure it will.
You can hang on to this show and use it whenever you need to.
Yeah.
I got some fun.
When I do, I'll do it with gusto, like you.
Do it with gusto. It's important. Gusto. That'd be the first time I use that in a long time. Hey, so we are here at segment 2 of the big show, and we're going to talk about who's winning and who is a losing. And it's quite a list as usual. You know, winning, first of all, I want to talk about WhatsApp. WhatsApp is a really, popular messaging platform, mobile messaging platform. Certainly very popular all over the world. It's gaining more popularity in the United States, but it's really popular in like Asia, for example. And they have an interesting new feature. So WhatsApp will now let you delete any messages that you regret sending. So if you send a message on this mobile messaging platform and you instantly regret it, I love it. I love that they're capitalizing on human regret. That's a whole show based on that right there. But let's say they say there's a story about it. All over the place. But Digital Trends did a nice piece on it. And they're talking about the fact that now WhatsApp is allowing you to basically remove and delete messages. Which is it's really one of the only messaging platforms where you can do that. You send a text message and it's pretty much out of your hands, right? And you send a Facebook message and it certainly exists somewhere, and you certainly don't have the ability to sort of like reach into somebody else's inbox and delete things that you've sent them. So anyway, I think that is probably a winning thing, because I think that I think it's interesting to capitalize on the idea of regret, and especially if you're using the app after you've had a few, you might be using the delete messages I sent out while I was drunk last night feature. But anyway, I'm going to put that in winning, because I think it's first of all, it's impressive how they were able to me, it's impressive how they're able to engineer that, because that's a difficult thing to do on a peer-to-peer network anyway, to create most things just create a footprint around it, right? So anyway, got to say that. The iPhone X or 10 is out and comes out today, I believe. And there's lots of lines and lots of technology journalists that I work with are covering it, and certainly covering all the stuff going on, But this is an interesting thing that came out from Apple today. So Apple released some of its marketing strategy for the iPhone X or 10, and they a story in Variety claims that they prioritized YouTubers over mainstream tech press for iPhone X reviews. So they sent phones out to well-known YouTubers and people like that. Your average consumer, bored at work, soldier knows best, high snobriety. 4 channels that together have some 2.5 million subscribers on YouTube. And they did that at the expense of not having units for some well-known technology journalists and that kind of thing. That's an interesting thing, right? We've talked about influencer marketing quite a bit on this show. We talked about how important it is, but for Apple to say that these YouTube channels, are more important than mainstream media outlet, I got to say that that's a losing thing for mainstream media. Yet another thing that shows mainstream media, possibly losing some of its influence. When companies like Apple are basically saying, well, who's got the audience and who's got the authenticity to publish like a first impression, video review of this phone, and and then the real question is, what effect is that going to have on sales, and that kind of thing. But it's definitely something to watch as as somebody in public relations, for high tech public relations for a long time. I certainly take note of it. There are certainly bloggers that I like to work with. There are certainly YouTube channels that I like to work with. I'm not sure I would necessarily prioritize some of that stuff over mainstream media outlets. To me, it's not an either or but thing. It's a yes and kind of thing. I think unless you have a limited availability of units, which I guess in this case they did. It's hard to believe that Apple, which is almost worth $1 trillion, has a limited anything. I got to say, Apple is very close to having, value of, they're going to be the first $1 trillion company in the history of Earth coming up. And it's hard that they would have a shortage of just about anything. I think they have more money than most small countries, most large countries too, probably. But we're going to put that in. We're going to put that in losing for the mainstream media. Definitely, that's a loss for the mainstream media if they're getting bumped by YouTube channels called Your Average Consumer and Bored at Work and High Snobriety. High Snobriety looks pretty interesting, by the way. You know who's winning is Corona. The company that owns Corona is now getting into Canadian pot. Yep. Constellation Brands has agreed to pay $190 million for a 10% stake in Canopy Growth Corporation, which sells medical marijuana in Canada and plans to sell recreational pot when it becomes legal as soon as next July. Interesting. So the Canopy CEO, Bruce Linton, told CNN recently that it's the first time a major alcohol manufacturer is investing in cannabis. And he says he plans to develop, are you ready for this one? He plans to develop a pot-infused non-alcoholic drink for the Canadian market. He said it will have 0 calories. It won't cause hangovers because it's the kind of thing that you'd have, before going to a comedy club. He says you may feel giddy. That's fantastic. That is special. I think that's winning for Corona, right? I'm going to say that's winning for them getting into the pot business. I think it creates a lot of questions and a lot of jokes. One of the hardest things I think about the marijuana industry, right, is dealing with the money, because there's so many financial institutions that won't take their money, and they have to. It's largely a cash business. I've read a lot of stories about that, particularly. That even though it's legal in some states and certainly legal other places, that the banking system still kind of frowns on your business. And so anyway, maybe a topic for another show. Who's to say? But here's your takeaway on this: is that Corona's winning because now they have a stake in a pot company, and so they're in alcohol and they're in pot. There's a joke in there somewhere. I'm going to say. I'll keep working on it. And, speaking of the iPhone X and or 10, Best Buy. If there's something dumb about to happen, that Best Buy is going to be associated with it in some way. And Best Buy had to stop the sales of its new phones after certain customers on social media noticed that they were charging. This is the most expensive phone in the history of mankind, by the way. And they noticed that they were selling the phone at a $100 premium. Like, hey, we have it, but we're going to charge you like an extra $100, to buy it from us. And of course, Apple flipped out because they don't like that. They don't like anybody adding premiums onto their product. If somebody's going to add a premium to an Apple product, you can bet your butt it's going to be Apple, So Best Buy had to stop sales after consumers started complaining about the retailer charging $100 premium. Remember after the hurricanes when Best Buy was charging $45 for a bottle of water? I mean, if you're Best Buy at this point, if you're Best Buy management, you have to say our people clearly, and it should be super clear by now, cannot be trusted. Our people cannot be trusted. There should be no pricing decisions that are being made at the local level because these people who are wearing our brand over their heart aren't making the best strategic business decisions for our brand, right? And certainly charging people that are paying $1,249 for a phone an extra $100 is going to get their attention and probably going to really piss them off. So not a good thing. And of course, Best Buy, as they always do in these type of stores, they posted a statement that explains this. So are you ready? Are you ready for some BS, some corporate BS? Here it comes. Many customers told us they like to buy a phone that is not activated, meaning it doesn't come with a carrier contract. The company sent a statement. This is because this may be because they broke a phone and want to replace it, or they're on a company plan and not allowed to upgrade. To accommodate this, we're accommodating people here. We gave consumers the choice to buy the iPhone X through installment plans with carriers or buy it outright unactivated. And the premium was intentional because offering different purchase options has a cost. I mean, so that's a lot of BS, right? That's so much BS that you can't even begin to say it. It's like so much. You can't even take that seriously. I got to say, everything has a cost. It's like, man, this company needs to hire somebody like me. They need somebody like me in the room that goes, "Hey, let's not make a bunch of BS stuff up. Okay, let's just explain that we had some. Here's what happened. We had some overzealous managers that saw an opportunity to make an extra $100 and did, and that's what happened. And then we tried to explain it a bunch of different ways that made us look stupid and we were lying. So Best Buy, you're losing again, and the water thing. I mean, nobody's forgotten the water thing either, just so you know. Oh, man. So Hollywood's really losing. Hollywood's losing. So the revelations about Harvey Weinstein really were just the beginning. And now I'm going to read you the list of people who have now been accused of harassment. And it's a list. So you got Kevin Spacey. You got Dustin Hoffman. You got Jeremy Piven. You got Brett Ratner. You got, my goodness, who other people you got this? I'm trying to look down this list so I don't take up like all of your time. It's an amazing list of people. And it does seem like everybody in Hollywood has sort of been groping and otherwise harassing everyone else. Ben Affleck has been accused of groping actress Hillary Burton on the set of MTV's TRL. We got Oliver Stone has been accused by actress Carrie Stevens of groping her at a party once. Mark Halburn, reporter, author, and media personality, is accused of sexual harassment of several women. And the list could take up the rest of this segment. Kevin Spacey. I said Jeremy Piven. Andy Dick, Brett Ratner, Dustin Hoffman. What a mess, man! What a huge mess going on in Hollywood. I think they're going to need to they're going to need to gather everybody together and just grant a one big amnesty thing, and everybody's going to have to go to sexual harassment training at the same time. Because man, these people don't know how to work together. I posted on a PR board today. I said, is it possible that men and women just don't have what it takes to work together? We just don't have the ability not to be stupid around each other. And we need to limit our ability to be around each other until such time that we can, because you would think so, right? You would think that, men and women have been working together for a good long time, but what a mess. What a huge honking mess for all of these people, for all the people that they've victimized for years. And now you have other people. I mean, you certainly could have some people coming up with false accusations. You don't even know. But man, Hollywood is losing at a level that where we could devote the entire show and still not be done. But Hollywood, you're all losing, and all of our perceptions in Hollywood are kind of, I don't know about you, but we're just kind of looking at there going, what the hell is going on over there? I mean, how could there be that many? How could there be that many cases for that long? And then, how could nobody have said anything ever? That's a scary thing. It's a scary thing. Hollywood's losing. You owe it to yourself to check out the story on Fast Company this week about some of the most outrageous Russian propaganda that appeared on Facebook. Facebook's in Capitol Hill, explaining to Congress how Facebook works, which can't be an easy conversation. They're right. So what? I click right here and I just hit share and it goes out to all these people. How do I even? I mean, what do I have to do? It's like, slow down, Grandpa. Here's how you do this. Can you envision how that conversation goes, by the way? I mean, it would take like such a level of patience to be able to walk through congressmen on how to use social media that you would, I'm sure people at Facebook who move, whose minds move at 1,000,000 miles, a minute anyway, are probably just going, I can't do this. It's like doing tech support for mom and dad. I can't, this is killing me. But you owe it to yourself to check out the most outrageous propaganda that they push, because they pushed events like Down with Hillary, and they posted things like another gruesome attack by police by Black Lives Matter movement activists. Our hearts are with these heroes. Not my president. All this kind of stuff. And the thing about the Russian influence, which really should kind of freak us out, is the fact of on so many different causes, and they're just kind of screwing with us. They're just kind of, as I've said many times on this show, Russia's really just kind of, finding a few issues and just finding a way to kind of keep pushing that button, right? And you don't even know what the goal is really supposed to be, and those kind of things. But you owe it to yourself to check out all of the crazy propaganda that came out of Russia that they're now kind of unveiling and showing what came out, through the last year's election. It's really, really fascinating. Like I said, the story, you can find it on Fast Company. It's called The Most Outrageous Russian Propaganda That Appeared on Facebook. And like I said, you owe it to yourself. It's awesome. And that's a bit of who's winning and losing this week, folks. Come on back in segment 3, and I'm going to give you some tips on how to be a great client. See you in a few minutes.
I'm Tim Dolbear, the host of Sound Experience on Intertalk Radio. Each week, I talk with top professional audio engineers, producers, musicians, and the manufacturers that make the tools that we use in the studio each and every day. From capturing the perfect take to mastering your final release, and the tools and how the pros use them, we are going to dive deep into their process and learn from their experience. I look forward to you joining us each week on Sound Experience with me, your host, Tim Dolbear.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
Make this your vinyl night. I'm John J.R. Robinson, and every week, music creation comes alive through stories, experiences, and sounds when vinyl records filled our hearts and minds. My friends and I share our tips and techniques used in creation of iconic tracks for recording artists such as Michael Jackson, Eric Clapton, Quincy Jones, and Steve Winwood, to name a few. Vinyl has emerged hot, and the soul of vinyl defines art and passion which burns deepest at night. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on EnterTalkRadio.com.
This is Jackie Bertoni from Jackie's Groove. Come join me weekly on my journey through the music business as I take you behind the velvet rope, interviewing industry notables such as Al Di Meola, Michael McDonald, and Al Jarreau, to name but a few. Listen to their stories on being in the studios recording #1 hits and onto the stages throughout the globe. Allow me to be your music historian. You can hear me live every Monday at 2 p.m. and every Wednesday at 12 noon Pacific Standard Time or 24/7 on jackiesgroove.com. Ready to get your groove on?
May the best brand win with Scott Robertson's Music Biz Marketing Strategies. Now, here's your host, Scott Robertson.
Hey, happy Friday, everybody. You are tuned to May the Best Brand Win on Intertalk Radio, the undisputed leader in music biz talk. I am Scott, your host for the big show. We just did Winning and Losing. Paul, who do you like this week?
I'm incredibly surprised to find out that Andy Dick sexually harassed someone at some point. That's I'm still processing that one.
Jeez, what a mess in that joint, right? I mean,
yeah, and it's one of those things that like everyone kind of knew, but turned a blind eye for years. It's crazy that it's all just kind of coming out all at once in a giant like broken dam.
Yeah, in most companies you have to sit through that mandatory sexual harassment video and training where they kind of explain to you what's appropriate and what's not. The video is hysterical, by the way. The videos the HR people use. My team at NAM and we used to make fun of those things, and I mean, just at a classic level. They were so incredibly. I mean, the acting is magical. You have to see it. You have to see the acting.
Well, I'm sure it could be argued whether or not those videos do any good, but even if they did, those videos are for, they're for the cubicle workers. That those videos are not for Oliver Stone.
Maybe Oliver Stone needs to direct a movie about sexual harassment.
No, you should direct one of these videos.
Directed by Oliver Stone. It's called, Don't Grope by Oliver Stone. Everybody's groping. It's like, I mean, it's just, what? Keep your friggin' hands to yourself. Stop it. What's the matter with you? I got to say that. Jeez.
I don't know.
I don't think boys and girls should be working together anymore because it's just, we can't do it. You can't be on the playground together. They need to have separate playground time.
Yeah. Well, and then Hollywood is even worse because that all runs on power, money, and cocaine. So that's not probably the best. And hot women. Mm-hmm. And hideous looking producers and directors.
You add that together,
yeah,
and you got one
yourself
hell of a sexual
gumbo
harassment film. One hell of a sexual harassment film coming at you, man.
Yeah.
Jeez, what a mess. All right. Well, you are on episode 72 of the Big Show, and we're talking about firing the client, today. And I thought it would be appropriate to maybe talk about how to be a great client. And all of us, when I say client, by the way, I say all of us kind of we serve and we are served. Whether you go to a restaurant and you're, a customer there, a client there, whether somebody comes to your house to do some work for you or something and you're a client there, your car, we all kind of play both of those roles, right? So it's important. I think it's important to know how to be a good client. I don't think a lot of people know how to do it really. And it's helpful. It's really, really helpful to help them, the client, get what they want. I mean, that's why they hired you. That's what I'm saying. So, I'm going to give you 5 tips on how to be a great client. Number 1, be clear about what you want. Be very, very clear. If you are out and you're hiring, let's say, a public relations firm, and you don't know what public relations is, and you don't know what the process looks like, ask, and be clear about what it is that you want. And, it's really, clarity is really, really important, in everything. But when you're essentially delegating a task to another organization to do for you, your clarity becomes extremely important, because if you don't get back exactly what you want, it's about a 90% chance that you're at fault for why you didn't, because you probably weren't super clear about what it is that you want. And the problem that goes hand in hand with that is, there are certain, clients out there that have no idea what they want, or they have a extraordinarily vague idea of what they want. The more vague your picture is about what it is that you want, I always tell clients, well, then how do you know when you get it? What does it look like? When I bring on a new client, we're always having, and even before that, we always have conversations about, what does success look like here? What does it look like to you? And that the answer to that question is really important, because you could say, oh, well, in this case, in the case of the client I had to fire this week, they say, well, we wanted a feature story, in this major publication, and that's what success looks like. It's like, okay, but they had all these conditions about how they wanted the reporter to cover the company and how they wanted to kind of do that. And some of that stuff you can steer, but let's be honest, when you are doing public relations, you are sort of putting your boat on a very mighty river, where you don't always control where, every way the boat goes. And if you want to control every way the boat goes, that's a river that's called advertising. You want to be the master of your own river and your master of your own universe. Get out your checkbook and do a freaking ad, But when you are doing public relations, get ready to submit to the will of the river a bit, and you can guide it and you can steer it and those kind of things. But and I think, not being clear about, or being clear about kind of the result you want, but not being clear about the process to get there can be a real problem. So make sure, if you want to be a great client, be clear about what you want. And that includes like if you go up to, if you go through the drive-through window at McDonald's, be clear about what you want. If you want, my son for a long time worked at McDonald's, and he said there's all kinds of idiots that come through the drive-through and they say, I want to, I want a hamburger, but I want to, I don't want pickles and I don't want onions and those kind of things and that kind of thing. And then they painstakingly give them what they want. And then the people say, that's fine, but where's the pickles? And it's like, you said you didn't want that. You said that really specifically, and those are the kind of, and that's when you get frustration on behalf of the provider, because when they deliver you exactly what they thought you want, and then you change your mind, they want to end you right there. That's the human emotion that's going on right there, is they want to just smash that hamburger right in your fat face. So, be clear. Very important. Number 2, be open to take the expert advice that you have sought out and hired. I've been doing marketing communications and public relations for almost 30 years now. There's very little I haven't seen. There's very little I haven't done. I stay really steeped in the latest stuff in communications, so it's a damn good bet that I know what's going on more than most clients will, unless they spend every waking hour of their life researching communications and human psychology and all these kind of things. And honestly, they probably don't have the time for that sort of thing. So, when you hire an expert, any expert, but let's just say a public relations expert, and they give you advice to do something, it is in your best interest to do it. It is always in your best interest to do it. If you go to the doctor and they tell you, and the doctor says, well, I think you need this treatment, and this treatment, based on my many years of medical school and, and my professional experience. Now, you're still in charge, you're still the customer, right? And you can say, well, I don't believe you. I want to get a second opinion. I want to get all these kind of things. But, you're sort of defeating yourself. It's like, you got to ask yourself the question. It's like, well, then why are you here? Why are you wasting your time and my time if you're not going to take the expert advice? And that's not to say that you can't, have a conversation about it and those kind of things. But, if it's going to be, in a client relationship, if it's going to be my opinion or theirs, that wins, it should probably be mine. Like I said, it's and especially if you're asking somebody to be responsible for results. One of the things that I always that I'm always really cognizant of is, if you're responsible for the results, then you should be able to deliver the results in the way that the best way possible, in your power and that kind of thing. And just, if you're responsible for the results, you shouldn't have to use somebody else's methodology to get there. And people get busted like this all the time in the creative communications field, because they'll take on an assignment. The client will say, they'll give, some counsel. The client will say, no, I want to do it this way, and I want to do it this way. And they say, okay, well, I guess, Mr. Client, you're the boss, and I guess we can do it your way. And then the thing fails miserably, and whose ass gets kicked? Which ass gets kicked in this equation to you? It's the service provider, right? Because at that point, the client's not going to take any responsibility for their foolishness and their foolish methodology, which is going to fail, right? So as a service provider, you need to raise your hand and go, this ain't going to work. This ain't going to work. And when it doesn't work, it's on you. It's not on me. It's on you, just so you know. Say that nicer. I'm just trying to be direct because, we don't have a unlimited amount of time here. But, make sure that you don't get roped into a situation like that, And that's what, Stephen Covey has this thing, when he talks about making deals, basically, win-win, win-lose, lose-win, and a no deal. And sometimes, no deal is a good place to be, especially if you're being set up to lose, Number 3, to be a great client, be available, be available to discuss things. In this client that I had to fire this week, they weren't available. They weren't available to discuss it. It wasn't important to them. It was clear that it wasn't important to them, yet they hired me to do it. So it's important to me. It's important enough to pay me, I suppose, pay my client or pay my, my fees, but it's not important to be enough to be available to discuss things. And if you're the CEO, don't send, if you're the CEO and you hire somebody, make yourself available to that service provider. That's the right thing to do. Because your relationship, if you send an underling or somebody else that doesn't have an understanding, the chances that you're going to get the actual message back, from your people, and it's going to be the same as how it was delivered, from the counselor, is going to be slim to none. So make sure that you have that availability, and again, just make sure that, or just be honest about the priority for this. Hey, we hired you to do this work. We're really busy doing something else. This isn't that important to us right now. Just hang tight and we'll get back with you or whatever, and that kind of thing. At least you're clear. At least you're clear about kind of where the priority is. Because if you're not available and that kind of thing, then you leave my company no choice but to fire you, because I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to, be out here working and not have access and be able to, provide some counsel. It's a real basic thing, but it's really, really, really important. Number 4, be ready to shift or change when things don't exactly work out. Now, in public relations, this is called every day of your life. Get ready. I remember we talked about the river, right? If you're gonna be in public relations, you better get ready for things not to quite go the way that you expect it to go. Be ready. They're going to pass you to another editor. They're going to pass you to another thing. Somebody else is going to get a different assignment. They're going to have a different vision about how this fits into their publication. They're going to have all these different kind of things can happen. If you're a super rigid client and you're like, well, I can't have any change in this. This is what we talked about. This kind of thing. It's like that puts a lot of pressure in a situation that's already filled with a lot of pressure. All right. Make sure you understand, particularly if you're dealing with public relations, really anything in communications at all, I would say, but be ready to shift or pivot that, if things aren't exactly working out, and be ready to kind of pivot together. There's nothing like the client that, is just, you can just feel that they're gearing up to blame you for when something goes wrong. Instead of being that client that's ready to, be super right about, oh, I was right. And that kind of thing, be the client that actually gets it done, for the organization, and that actually is ready to kind of shift and move, like I said, when things don't work out. Because again, it's very, very likely, it's very, very possible that that's going to happen. And my fifth tip is, be grateful. Be grateful. To be a great client, if somebody does something spectacular for you, we lined you up, this client that I fired this week, instead of being excited about the fact that I was able to get this, story opportunity and get this all lined up for them in exactly the way that we lined up in the plan. You know how often that happens? Like never, so it's like, instead of being grateful for that, all they could say was, well, we don't think it's going to, they had excuse after excuse as to why it wasn't, a hamburger with pickles and that kind of thing when they ordered a hamburger with pickles. Be grateful. Some of my best clients, they love working with me, and they say it, and they say, hey, it's so great to work with you. Thank you so much. You're such a valuable member of our team. Really appreciate it. Everybody likes to get, an attaboy once in a while, and likes to know that the work that you're doing, you're kind of slaving away out there, is being appreciated. Don't be afraid to show that appreciation. It's really, really important. It can go a long way. I'll tell you that, for one of my clients who's been with me probably almost all of the 6 years that I've been doing this, one of my favorite clients. And one of the reasons is because, we have a great relationship. We know there's not going to be a lot of, BS and that kind of stuff around it. It's going to be pretty straightforward stuff. And the fact that this client is always acknowledging our work and always saying, hey, that was fantastic. That was awesome. That worked so well for us. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That kind of thing. And that's, that's just like, it's like being a good boss. You always want to tell your people that they're doing a great job. And if you do that, psychological, psychology 101 right here is that you're positively reinforcing the behavior, and it's much more likely to happen again. What have we learned today? We live in a world of servers and the served, and most of us play both roles really in business and as consumers. But, as the service provider, you sometimes you have to know when things just aren't working, and sometimes you have to get to a no deal position before you're set to lose, and that's going to give you greater peace of mind. And honestly, it's just better for everyone involved, including the client that's getting fired, because no deal is always better than a really, really bad deal. It's really, really important to know this. I hope it never happens to you. I really do. I hope it's never advice that you have to use. But in the case that it does, sometimes the client just needs to get the boot. And that's it for me, marketing fans. Until next time, this has been Scott Robertson, host of May the Best Brand Win on Intertalk Radio, the undisputed leader in music biz talk. Rock on. We'll see you next week. You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on Intertalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Hi, this is Tim Dolbear from Eclectica Studios. I'm a full-time mixing and recording engineer. I work with Grammy winners, labels, and indie artists, using state-of-the-art digital mixing and restoration tools and the very best in analog gear. Really, though, it's my ability to bring tracks to life and fulfill your vision for your music. This has made me sought after by producers and artists worldwide. So spend your time working on music and not chasing a mix down a rabbit hole. Go to timdolbear.com and check out our free one-song mix offer.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
This is Jackie Bertoni from Jackie's Groove. Come join me weekly on my journey through the music business as I take you behind the velvet rope, interviewing industry notables such as Al DiMeola, Michael McDonald, and Al Jarreau, to name but a few. Listen to their stories on being in the studios recording #1 hits and onto the stages throughout the globe. Allow me to be your music historian. You can hear me live every Monday at 2 p.m. and every Wednesday at 12 noon Pacific Standard Time or 24/7 on jackiesgroove.com. Ready to get your groove on?